Hey guys, welcome back to Enlightened Turtle. It's your host Kev here, joined with Taz. Today we're going to be doing a short reading relating to Orpheus and the harp. Now, Orpheus is obviously related to Apollo and has similar veneration. I'm trying to do this reading. It kind of ties into some Christian elements and relates to the stars being representative of certain elements of gospel and things like that. So hopefully the video shouldn't be too long. I'm hoping around 10 minutes. So without further ado, let's get straight into it.
I'm conquering the spirit, I'm busting through the ceiling. I'm following your lead, I'm following the spirit.
Orpheus was just a mortal man who lived a tragic life. He was master of music. So much was his mastery over music that he was able to make the beasts fall asleep, the rivers stop running, and the stones dance on Olympus. The 21st Psalms introduces a special celebration of God's exalted strength in the matter, and represents all his holy ones as singing and praising his power. So also is the apocalyptic visions of the destruction of the destroyers of the earth. The 24 elders in heaven fell upon their faces and worshipped God, saying, "We give thee thanks, O Lord, the Almighty, who art and who wast, because thou hast taken to thee thy great power and hast reigned, i.e. entered on thy dominion." Accordingly also the first decan of Sagittarius is the constellation of Lyra. The Lyra, the harp, marked by one of the brightest stars in the northern heavens. The harp is the oldest of the string instruments of music. The ancients ascribed its invention to the gods. We find it named along with the organ and shepherd's pipe 300 years before Adam died in Genesis 4:21, and find a specimen of song to be sung to it dating back to the same period, Genesis 4:23-24. The most renowned performer on the harp or lyra in the classical myths is Orpheus, often identified with Apollo. He is called the father of songs and the particular helper of the Argonauts, the noble ones seeking for the golden fleece. He is not mentioned by his name by Hesiod or Homer. His art is everywhere associated with religion, prayer, prophecy, and all sacred services, teachings, anticipations, and especially with the joyous element in all holy things. At the instance of Apollo and the Muses, it is said God himself placed the harp of Orpheus among the stars, where it has ever since been, gladdening the celestial sphere with brightness and song. The placing of that harp as the first decan of Sagittarius connects preeminent gladness, joy, and praise with the action of this great archer, with his bow and arrows. There is but one such sign in all the ancient constellations, and that is associated with the going forth of this double-natured bowman, aiming his arrows at the scorpion's heart. It marks him in this particular attitude and act as the achiever of what is the sublimest glory of God and the sublimest joy of heaven. People often smile and jest at the fabled power of the lyra of Orpheus, at which the rivers for the time forgot to flow. The wild beasts lost their savageness. The trees and rocks on Olympus moved from their places to listen. The ship of the Argonauts glided smoothly into the sea. The mountains became entranced. The dragon that guarded the golden fleece sank into sleep. The sufferers in the underworld for the moment lost their pains, and all the potencies of hell yielded homage. But when we connect the Lyra with the action of this glorious archer, and take that action in its true prophetic significance, as the inventors of these signs intended them, these smiles and jests subside, and the scene of glorious achievement opens to our view, which has been the burden of all the songs and prayers, hopes and joyful anticipations of an enthralled and suffering word, that time that Adam was driven out of Eden up until then. That glorious archer, as he appears in this sign, answers to the Lamb. John beheld him, standing having 7 horns and 7 eyes. All the fullness of regal, intellectual and spiritual power of almightiness, and in the act of lifting the title deed of the alienated inheritance to take possession again of all that sin has disponed away, heaven contemplated that act with awe and grew breathless as it gazed, and a thrill went through the universal heart of living things. A new song broke forth from the living ones and elders around the throne of deity, and rolled sublime through the heavenly spheres, till afar in the depths of space the voices of angelic myriads took it upon every culture in heaven and on earth, under the earth and upon the sea, and all living things in these realms were heard singing and saying to him that sitteth upon the throne, and to the Lamb, be the blessing and the honour, the glory and the dominion for the ages of the ages. And this is the true Lyra of Orpheus, a joy and gladness and jubilation of the universe at the fulfilment of the burden of all sacred hope and prayer, embodied in the words, Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We thus observe a depth of splendour, a volume of pathos and universality, of sacred ardour and poetic outpouring, as just as it is tremendous, as to watch all the extravagances of the mythic record do not reach halfway, with a wonderful appropriationness, then which could hardly have come from the unaided powers of man, did the farmers of these constellations select the brightest star in the northern heavens to represent this harp, and give it the name of Vega, which signifies he shall be exalted, the warrior triumphant, the very name from which our own word victory has come, a name which the Apostle John uses in its primeval and true connection, where he challenges death and Hades, triumphs over them and cries his glad thanks. Quote, to God who gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Unquote. In some of the uranographies, this constellation is marked by the figure of an eagle or a hawk, the enemy of the serpent, who darts forth upon his prey from the heavenly heights with great suddenness and power, and this eagle is in the attitude of triumph, much as the Mexican eagle is represented victoriously grasping the serpent in its claws. It is the same idea, the triumphant overwhelming of the enemy. From this, many of the modern atlases represent the figure of this constellation by an eagle holding the harp, or a harp placed over an eagle, expressing triumphant song springing from the eagle, that is, from the vanquisher and destroyer of the serpent. Whatever the variations of the figure, the same idea is retained, showing the true intention in the marking of this constellation, and the tenacity with which the original thought has clung to it in all ages and in all nations. It is the sign of the serpent, ruled the enemy destroyed, the triumphant fulfillment of the sublimest hopes of the sacred promises. There's a chance I may do another video on Orpheus, as there's a lot more to discuss with this man being immortal and having all these venerations that are associated with these solar deities. However, there's going to be more of these short videos on other topics as well as we move forward. So as you can see there, guys, Orpheus has many connections to the god Apollo. There's many interesting facets there. Obviously the biblical elements from the gospel, from the Psalms, to references from John the Baptist, and obviously there's the astrological sense where he's placed in the sky as a constellation represented by an eagle, the brightest star in the sky, Vega, which was interesting to me. And there's a number of other references there that tie into the connectability between Apollo and Apollo. Now, Apollo, there was that statue of a young Apollo, that was found in Etruria that I put into the Apollo and Apollo video, where you see the serpent on the tree, which is, as was stated there, you know, it's even described in Mexico as the eagle clutching the serpent, and it's the minion, it's the conquering of that serpent, as I referenced in that previous video. So like I said, I don't want this video to be too long. I've said what I needed to say on Orpheus, the harp, and the Lyra, and how it connects. And I will just leave this. This is a little bit off topic, you know, classic Kev. But does anyone know of the guy called Alex Collier he was into aliens and the Andromedans? Well, he believed the Andromedans came from Lyra, and there was great wars in the constellation of Lyra. So personally, I don't believe in aliens myself, but it is fascinating that, you know, even in, you could say, these other pseudo fields, that these elements still remain. And we've got so much more to discuss on Apollo, Orpheus, and, you know, I think on the next video, which is going to be the next solar deity video, where I do a comparability, a pretty more extensive video, we're going to look at Mabon. Now, Mabon is a very interesting character, and yeah, I'll leave it at that. So hopefully I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for stopping by. Peace.